All right. And we are live, not live, but we are live, but the podcast is live. Anyways, we have the first edition of our podcast, which is called Critical Thinker. What's the difference? Is just another podcast? No. I think this is Pepper. I'm Gharios. And our goal is to make you think because you have so many podcasts out there. They all have their opinions and they should. But unfortunately, today, people don't have their own opinions anymore. What they do is they have emotional reactions. So if they're left and the left says something, they like it. If the right says something, they hate it. So it doesn't matter that people don't think anymore. So our purpose here is not to force you to think the way we think, but make you get to your own conclusions, right?
Yep. So we have our statue coming. We'll have the critical thinker coming. He's on his way. But yeah, this podcast is just our opportunity to kind of flesh out certain ideas we have on theology, philosophy, and
Politics,
religion, a little bit of everything, and fashion, women. And we'll be able to go through all of these things and just kind of spitball and come to conclusions on things or not. Just think through
or not.
it.
Yeah. Maybe our shenanigans will, make you reach some epiphany. Maybe not. But it's our duty to present it to you. And we are open to, of course, your ideas, your inputs, your suggestions. You can do it in the comment section, or you can send it to us in this email that is showing right there. So, what's gonna be our first?
Well, I think a great way to start these is just throughout the week. I think a good aspiration and I know you and I already do this, but for anyone who's listening or watching this, an aspiration to have is just throughout the week to be finding something new to learn and be digging into stuff and always be finding new information, looking into history, looking into different facts. When you read something or hear something on the news, digging into that and following rabbit trails throughout the load of information we have out there in books and media. And I know you and I can and have just been able to sit down and, hey, this is what I've been looking at this week. So I'll just, within the last few hours, what I've been kind of looking at, I was Nikolai Tesla. And there's a lot of information out there about him, and you have kind of a general idea of who the guy is. He did something with science, electricity. I read this whole a couple different biographies about the guy, and it was just fascinating to me how he died in debt, in poverty and debt, which is so fascinating. He was a little bit of a savant. You almost wonder if he was on some autism, Asperger's spectrum there, because the guy was a genius, but didn't know how to market himself, didn't know how to be a businessman about this information, had a lot of his ideas stolen, even his patents taken, and never was able to make his ideas marketable and profitable.
Do you know his relation with J.P. Morgan?
Yeah, I was reading about that. I didn't know that until today when I read.
Exactly. So the main problem was that he was trying to, he was studying, and it's a very interesting subject that we can even make many shows about that. It actually includes the pyramids in Egypt, because a lot of people are talking about it now, saying that was never a tomb for pharaohs because they never found any mummies there.
Right.
So it was actually a huge battery that would be able to channel the energy and making energy available and wireless everywhere to everyone. And there are actually the science behind it. I'm not. I've read about it, but I cannot tell you. If you guys want, I can bring out the actual facts. But the point was that Tesla was making this big tower that was trying to mimic what he thought was going on in the pyramids, and he was trying to channel this energy that's supposed to be free to everyone, and J.P. Morgan was funding him, and then suddenly he decided that he wouldn't fund him anymore because J.P. Morgan owned all the energy companies back then, oil, coal, and then suddenly what he does, he starts financing Thomas Edison, Tesla's greatest enemy.
Yep. Well, and I didn't realize that Tesla had actually worked for Edison when he first came over from America. He got hired by Edison and was his employee. And Edison promised him a certain amount of money. I think I was reading $50,000 to improve on one of his systems. And the article I was reading at least said that Tesla did. And then basically Edison was like, "Nope, welcome to America. You're not getting paid." And then he left at that point.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Well, what I've heard is that Edison had the reputation of being someone that steals other people's ideas.
Yeah, yeah. But what is interesting, and you have these guys throughout history, and it's a lesson to us, I think, is the genius of being a businessman and a marketer. I mean, take Steve Jobs, for instance. Steve Jobs is a guy, I don't know if you've ever watched the Jobs movie with
Sure.
with Michael Fassbender, but I mean, I walked away from that at least not having known a bunch about him before, so impressed by how I didn't realize how much of an asshole he was, and two, how much of a incredible marketer he was.
Yeah.
He was good at marketing. And you get guys like this who's like Thomas Edison, who, okay, maybe he doesn't have the same ingenuity as Tesla in the engineering aspect or electrical aspect, but he is a genius businessman, marketer.
Yeah.
And those guys end up being successful. So how can we take those principles?
Yeah. And I really think that, we should have certain indulgence for geniuses that are weird people. But the problem is you have any idiot thinks that, he or she can say or do anything and be difficult and be delicate and be easily offended and stuff like that. And Tesla was, as you said yourself, he was probably on the spectrum. He was like completely, crazy and stuff like that. And unfortunately, what you said about him dying in debt and stuff like that, people that are usually driven by ideas and not by money, that happens. And imagine how many wars. Imagine if we had free energy. Something happened to us after this first podcast. You know that we are talking about the establishment here. Okay, let's laugh about it. We have some effects here. And because if something happened to us, it's because we are denouncing this status quo. No, but now seriously, imagine if we didn't have to pay for energy. Imagine if energy was free to everyone. So we wouldn't have to have wars, at least for that reason.
Right.
And the advancement of technologies would be greater too, because...
Well, and there are certain things, like my dad has been an engineer at IBM for 45 years, just retired last year. And there are certain technologies that, I mean, we've had for years. I remember when 3D first came out, like the good 3D movies. And my dad's like, I've been waiting for 30 years to see this. I saw this at the World Fair in, the 70s. They had this technology.
The old paper.
Well, no, even better. He said some of the, I'm not talking about the red and blue, like some of the newer stuff. He said, I saw this at the World Fair in like 1974, 80 or whatever. And he said, I was wondering at what point we'd have that in actually in the big screen, and it finally came out in 2012 or whatever, sometime around then. And so it's interesting to see some of these technologies are just sat on or are not made available to the public until way later, and you wonder how many gatekeepers there are. I mean, there probably is the possibility for a lot cheaper technologies and energies, and how many people are being gatekeeping that for financial reasons. And then where's the line? Like my question is, because I'm also, pro-capitalism. Like, go ahead,
Me too.
Go ahead, and make
That
money.
has to be stated here. We are pro-capitalism, okay? Communism was tried to exhaustion. It doesn't work. It's against human nature.
Yep.
But the problem is the savage capitalism is
Right.
is the purpose. I always talk about. I'm so sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
you're fine.
one of the main problems we have in society, and we're going to talk a lot about that here. I always mention that is because we got off course.
Mhm.
Because I give you an example, okay? I always give this example. In the beginning, when capitalism, the original idea of capitalism is this: I want to make mugs, okay? So I want to make the best possible mug with the best possible materials. I want my employees to be happy because I want them to work, to produce, to be happy, and to make the most beautiful mugs, the best, highest possible quality. And I'm going to sell a lot of mugs and be rich in consequence of the quality of my product. Okay, this is the original capitalism. That's what I'm, like the feminism. I'm from the original. I like the original idea,
Right? Yeah.
like everything. But the problem is we go nuts. Then what we have now? We have people making because right now it's not people passionate about making mugs, but people that are only interested in saving every penny to make a profit. So you don't have mug makers anymore. You have people making the mugs with the worst possible materials. In other countries, making people work as semi-slaves, and just because they want to gain another 10 cents of profit. So that's the problem with capitalism. It's not capitalism the problem. And I see that people go, if they are left, they go stream right, and vice versa. The problem is not, okay, capitalism is terrible, let's go to be socialist. No, capitalism is good, but the original capitalism, the capitalism that prizes to make nice products, to give good conditions to the workers, and people are happy. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, that's and obviously there's a shift. So where is that balance? Is there balance? I heard this great quote, and I forget who it was, someone famous, and I think I mentioned it to you the other day when we were talking. But equity and liberty are mutually exclusive. You can't have equity and liberty. So it's you get this spectrum of like the more open and free a capitalistic society is, you do allow more of an opportunity for these mega companies to get up there and become monopolies. But we do have monopoly laws, but obviously there have been a lot of ways that companies have circumvented that. But I mean, I always wrestle with where is the line? Do you put a line on that? Part of me kind of errs on the side of maybe it's just survival of the fittest. If the guys can get big and strong enough, why not let them? They're smarter, and you have to take them down if you want to be, end that regime.
But don't you think that is destroying our humanity, like our human compassion and interaction with other people? Like, everything becomes just about money. There's no more values. There are no more morals. It's
Right.
just about profit, and it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be. Profit is great. Making money is great. Making products is great. But don't you think that is killing kind of this survival of the fittest, is killing like our human compassion?
Oh, certainly. It certainly does. But I mean, should you have the right to increase compassion to prevent someone's liberty from making it all a financial benefit, a financial gain? I mean, does anyone and should anyone have the right to step in? And some people, most people might argue the government. That's the purpose of the government, to step in and draw the line and say, okay, this is where someone's profit and, capitalism or ambitions as a company needs to stop because it becomes tyrannical and abusive towards, the common man. Is there a line that needs to be drawn in the sand? And is that government's place,
Theoretically, yeah.
And if so, where is that line? I err on the libertarian side. I always default personally to more freedom, more freedom, more freedom, almost to a fault, where it's like so much freedom, I'd allow bad shit to happen because I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on here. We didn't discuss that. I allow bad stuff to happen because like it's freedom, and err on the side of survival of the strongest man. But maybe that's the wrong line, because on the other side you're letting, you go so far the other side and you become, idealistically socialistic, where it's, oh, the government can come in and make everyone equal, everyone profit, and that doesn't work, obviously.
That doesn't work, obviously, yeah. I mean, I'm going to say something here that I'm probably going to be... but, okay, I have to use all the effects, otherwise, we have to use it. Anyways, what I say is, I give you a clear example of what I'm saying. The medical industry,
right.
The pharmaceuticals,
yeah.
Okay? Don't you think that they should have a ceiling of profit because they are a public utility? For example, okay, if you go, there's no way people are trying to make, for example, to make it like health insurance affordable for people in the United States, okay? As long as an enema costs $1,200 to have it in a hospital, or an urinal costs $400, okay? It will be impossible. You cannot make, calculations with the budget. That's not where the problem is, okay? It's totally fine for everyone to make lots of profit, okay? How much you think it costs to produce a urinal, okay? Cents.
Yeah.
And you sell it for $400. An enema, if you go to, any pharmacy, any, drugstore, you find the enema thing. I use the enema because that's how I feel with this kind of policy.
Right,
I feel like an enema, Anyways, you find it for like $20, $40. And I'm sure the drugstore is making a good profit. Oh, yeah. I'm sure the factory is making a good profit. Where are they finding this $1,100 and some change? Why?
Yeah. Well, and you get, let's look at, the right to work states. You've got states have stepped in at certain points and made a huge distinction. As someone who lived in North Carolina for years and now lives in California, I'll give you two extreme examples. In North Carolina, right to work state, you had signs in one of the restaurants I worked at that said, no call. They had these in the back of the restaurant. No call, no show. I forget the other word, but basically no call. If you don't call in and say you're not coming up and you don't show up, you're never allowed back. There's no oh, it was a mistake. Oh, I slept through my alarm. The employer had complete autonomy legally to you look at him wrong, by. As opposed to North Carolina, I have a friend who ran a business, landscaping business, had an employee who was stealing money from him. He knew it. He could prove it. It took him 6 months to fire the guy, and he still ended up, in addition to the financial loss from the guy stealing from him, the guy filed some lawsuits, and he still ended up losing more money from firing the guy. Because California is not right to work state. So you've got these two dichotomies where one gives businesses complete autonomy and one doesn't, and you see the potential problems of both. So obviously there's a middle ground that's probably the morally right middle ground. However, what say should the government have to be able to say, here's the moral right? Here's where the equator needs to be. And I think we've forgotten I was reading somewhere recently and I forgot. I was like, man, that's right. That's how our initially America wanted to be self-governing. As in the people have the right to govern themselves. As in you and I both should have the autonomy to govern ourselves as individuals. I think we've forgotten it. even though we look back towards like, okay, this is what the Constitution initially meant, but like, with all these like state rights, we usually err on the side of like, oh, what were the state rights as opposed to like, oh, like federal, and it's always been a balance. But initially, it's like we have we should have the ability to govern ourselves, and where does that tie in, And what place does the government have to come in and step and say, hey, here's the moral right. We're not going to let this abuse happen on one side or the other.
Just corroborating with what you're saying, everybody know I was born and raised in exile in Brazil, and Brazil has very strong labor laws.
Right.
They have a principle called hyposufficiency, which means if you are an employee and you sue your employer, there is a 95% chance. I don't know how it is now, but it used to be like that. You have a 95% chance of winning, even if legally the employer doesn't owe you anything.
Right.
So it's a very protected labor laws for the common man. However, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of Brazilians illegally crossing the Mexico border to come to the United States to work here that has almost no labor laws. So what's the, I'm not against protecting the worker, okay? I'm not against it. But if you create I don't know the word, if it's paternalist, like a too protective system, usually the employee takes advantage of that.
Right.
And then you are in the hands of in Brazil until very recently, I think now because the communist guy went back to power, you had a union, you were obliged, you were forced to pay the union.
Right. Yeah.
From your paycheck, they already took
it out.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Okay. Another thing I want to say about the laws, what you said, interference of the government. I believe that in some areas you have urgency. For example, education. Okay, I would love that the community could self-govern itself and create a good education to people, but unfortunately, you don't have. In this area, I think Brazil is a little better than here because you can have public universities that are very good quality for free. Okay? Here is very hard, to find a superior education institution that is as good as the paid ones. So if you want better men and women, there you go. Now you have to always say, but if you want better men and women, you need to educate them. That's the first, as I always say, if you want a remedy, a panacea that can cure anything, it's education. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you have to make education accessible for everyone. I'm not saying, I'm saying equality of opportunities, not equality of outcome. Okay? You have, everyone has the chance of having a good education. What happens after that is up to each individual, okay? But education is one of the things. And for example, another thing that I am completely different than the rest, I never heard anyone saying the things I say, but one of the things I say is that I don't believe that in economical system, one size fits all. I don't believe that the same recipe for the United States is the same recipe for Brazil, is the same recipe for Somalia, is the same recipe for Japan. You have different people with different histories. And we were talking the other day, even the average temperature affects production.
Oh, yeah.
They had that study that they said that I think was 13 grades Celsius are the optimal. So you can say that there's no economically advanced country in the tropical areas. Don't you think that's crazy? So they had this study, and they proven that you have to have a certain climate. In Brazil, we have that too. You have in the south and southeast, you have the country is more productive, and in the north and northeast, you have higher temperatures, and therefore production goes down. So I believe that each country has their own particular tailor-made solution. But for example, when you have, I'll tell you what I'm getting there. Somalia, for example, Africa, these people are starving. So you cannot wait until the society is evolved enough that is going to take care of this. These people are hungry today. They are dying of famine today. So you have to find a solution to that. I'm not saying that you have to feed these people indefinitely, but create opportunities for these people to work, and the government can give them opportunities and give them like chances to have their own um, forms of making money. And we have with our NGO, we created a, I don't want to make any kind of marketing of the NGO here, but we created the We Initiative, which is World Evolution, and we are tackling hunger, green wealth, and education. And one of the things is to give these poor people the opportunity of working on something that is environmentally correct, and they can make money out of something. For example, recycling. They can make money out of something that people are throwing away. So that's one of the solutions. I'm not saying you should give handouts to people. I'm against handouts. I think you should help people under the condition that they have to work. They have to work. They have to put their children in school. That's supposed to be how it works. You cannot say no food for these people because they're going to die. And they're going to rebel themselves. They're going to kidnap people that are rich, and so on and so forth. And you cannot just give them everything and make them like lazy.
Right. Well, and you were talking about like how there's not one size fits all for government for each country and area, but there's also like, you were mentioning the history, but there's the like in addition to that, there's the culture. You've got these people that it takes time for transition and change to happen in a society. Absolutely. That's why, look, the American Revolution was a much different historical event than the French Revolution. And they were in different places as countries, and the repercussions of the two were significantly different for the two countries. And we, or in America, established a new successful form of government very quickly in comparison to France.
We were talking about that the other day, and in my opinion, the French Revolution was the worst thing that happened to the Western world in the last 500 years, in my opinion. And because they were fighting for liberty, equality, and fraternity, and you never had a worse police state ever. It was the worst. The worst. And when you seek something and you become exactly the opposite of that, right, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? The American Revolution is a different story, but the French Revolution, in my opinion, was the worst.
Well, and they transitioned to, for years and years until, guess what? Until Napoleon came, essentially. Even after that, there were still ripples of the French Revolution, even after Napoleon, but he definitely caused there to be a uniformity in France that had not been there since the Revolution. Yeah, and you look at the, just divide in the people, and you look at throughout history the cycle of regimes, and how typically it goes from a democracy to then an oligarchy, and that oligarchy then is transitions to a revolt and overthrow that like oligarchy and establish, one leader who ends up being, tyrant at some point or monarch, and then segues back to a democracy. They overthrow the tyranny monarchy. I mean, throughout history, we see this cycle of regimes, as they call it.
It's all there. 2,500 years ago, the Republic by Plato. If you want to understand human nature in politics, you just go there and read. It's everything there. We didn't change a bit, anything. We changed technologically, of course, But in terms of human nature, we are still the same. Is right there. Everything that is happening, and people that say that the United States is a democracy is not. Is an oligarchy.
Well, and it's interesting. That fits with America, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You brought up Plato's Republic, and I've recently been redigging into Aristotle and Plato and a lot of those classic writers. And you think about philosophy, these guys who I'm an actor, and as an actor, the first thing, if I were teaching an acting class, or one of the first books I would hand to an acting student is Aristotle's Poetics. It's a systematic part of it is a systematic breakdown of what the art of acting is, and you get these guys who wrote philosophically, broke down to the very fibers of existence what is humanity philosophically, and who's doing that anymore? I was thinking about that the other day, philosophy. What philosophers do you have today that are like that, who are doing that kind of stuff? And granted, they kind of did. You could argue they've done it all. They broke it down to every degree. But we've become such a. You get the postmodernists, which went a totally different direction.
Yeah, I think there's some people don't understand that a fundamental thing for the philosopher is to have something that is called in Italian a dolce far niente, which is the sweet doing nothing. You need contemplation, because what the philosophers used to do, they were looking for like to understand everything, to understand the world. They would look a tree for 10 hours.
Right.
And they would try to understand the principles, try to see a bird, try to see this and that. But today with TikTok and how can you think and reach any interesting thing if you're just looking at people dancing to choreographies? Okay, I'm the old guy in this podcast here. I know it doesn't look but I'm 20 years older than him. I know I look the young one, but I'm not. So he is 30. I'm going to be 50. I'm 49. So we are from two different generations. Just a little pause here, because this podcast was born from our endless conversations. And we said, well, we are wasting money here because we can talk for hours. We have no script, nothing. We can talk for hours and hours and hours. You see that,
right?
And that's how we connected. And I have a great pleasure to have him here because he is a thespian. I'm also I'm used to be an actor. I like to act and direct. I'm classically trained since Brazil, so I have over 400 credits as a writer, director, producer, etc. And we have that in common. And also the love for philosophy, religion, and politics and things like that. So when we start talking, it doesn't end. And I said, well, we have to film that, and we have to put it out there so we can benefit some people with our ideas or just laugh from our stupidity, right. One of the other. Right?
Well, and hopefully the idea is that you will be able, at least vicariously, to participate in the conversation and think through the same thing.
Absolutely. We're counting on that.
Well, and to your point, there's noise, we live in a noisy, both literally and figuratively, a noisy society. And there's not that stillness, there's not that rest, there's not that, which I think is why so many people are drawn to things, like yoga, where you're able to slow down.
Pay attention to your breathing. That's the most important thing in yoga.
Right, yeah. But that's one of very few avenues that I think our culture currently promotes that is in silence, and most times yoga studios do have music still playing. It's not that it's still like there's still noise. We still have a hard time being still in that situation. So I think we can, it's such an important characteristic for exactly that contemplation, for thinking through what am I, where and like what's my purpose, what is the meaning of life, what makes me tick, how can I, and that's why you have so many people that go to therapy, right? Because they're just thinking through this stuff out loud in front of another, a sounding box in a sense.
It is important to point that meditation, prayer, those are all scientifically proven methods that you can be happier. You can be less stressed. Mm-hmm. That's proven. That's not like prayer, regardless of your denomination, your religion, benefits. Meditation benefits everything that makes you to think and to try to connect with something bigger than you has health benefits proven by science.
And so you have these, and you've got these people who, I mean, our society, our world is, especially in the United States, which is mostly my perspective, is, littered with people who have anxiety issues, who have depression issues, which all come from as a result of being in such a noisy society and amongst other things. And the solution that we've given is to medicate that.
Oh,
and
God.
this will upset many people. But like that's the solution. And if you have a problem, let's take an example like this. You've got a broken arm. Is the solution to fixing your broken arm to put it in to put a Band-Aid on it or to put a sling on it? I mean, no, that can help take away, or to take a morphine. Sure, that's going to take away the symptoms that indicate your arm is broken, but ultimately it needs to heal. You need to fix the actual, issue, the root issue. And I think a lot of these medications are Band-Aids to patch up the symptoms. I think your depression, anxiety, stress, those things are indicators that something else, and I won't say what that is, but something else needs to be fixed.
And one thing to be pointed, the majority of those drugs and those so-called treatments, they are guessing.
100%.
They give you the drug and they kind of test in you, like, okay, let's give you a little bit more, a little bit less. Oh, you can't sleep, you feel like you want to kill someone. Oh, okay, let's take it a little bit, And I remember Seinfeld.
Yeah.
What kind of drug you want? Just calculate or kill me and take a little bit. Yeah, I mean, that's what people do. Wow. That's what they do, and that's why you have like some crazy things going on in traffic. People, like, they wake up one day, they get an assault rifle and they kill everyone, and people are trying to banish the guns instead of seeing the mental health of the people, which in my opinion is and we're going to go on that on the dating relationships area, sure, which is it's God, that's
and
Pandora's box.
To quote my favorite movie, The Prestige, in fact, and to quote Nikolai Tesla from The Prestige, played by David Bowie, he says, exact science, Mr. Angier, is not an exact science, because that's the reality,
Yeah.
like so much of these things. And, we mentioned the other day, I believe it was you I was mentioning, how many years ago did Galileo get, put on house arrest for saying, the science that was contrary to the science of the day.
And that's exactly how science is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Science is supposed to be something constantly evolving because, you discover different things every day.
Yeah.
So that's how science should be. Science shouldn't be something hermetically closed, and there's people that know it all. And I remember, that I've studied this UFO things when I was a teenager, and I remember being called crazy and being called, oh, you're wasting your time with that. And of course, today the Pentagon admitted publicly that they exist, and a lot of people are wanting to, you know, uh, destroy themselves because oh, science never found anything. Oh, science, like as if science was this group of eminent people that know it all. That's not the case. Like we have absolutely no technology to be sure there is no life, intelligent life in other galaxies. We don't have enough. We've seen like the universe, like we, according to science, we can perceive 5% of what actually exists from multiple, the infinite dimensions, infinite. There are like a lot of galaxies, and actually, what people don't mention about life in other planets is that the scientists they say that they agree that the probabilities of having life are very high because if there's only one planet with life in each galaxy, we have over 100 billion planets. We're only talking about this dimension. We're not talking about the multiverse, and which are all things that are part of science. They're not just science fiction, but those are things that people are talking now and say, oh, if you see some astronomer going and say, oh, that doesn't exist. No, you can't. You don't have enough elements. You don't have enough technology to say no, that doesn't exist because you don't even know our own oceans here.
Right, 80% of the ocean we haven't explored.
So
can't explore.
I'm sorry, I get nervous.
Well, and here's an example. You're let's say you've never seen a house before or a building. Let's say you've never seen a building before, and you're walking through the woods. 8 guys who've never seen a building before walking through the woods and stumble upon a house, and you could all come to different conclusions. You all have the same evidence in front of you. Maybe you stumble across more evidence later. A guy who says he built the house. But, like, one guy might be like, oh, someone obviously built this, created this. Some other guy might be like, no, like, someone, this is obviously created by, like, it just, after years and years, the trees turned into this house, Someone else says, oh, like, you can come up with so many conclusions. You've got so much evidence there. There's a lot of evidence we might not have, but we're all working with the same facts, or for the most part, it's just a matter of how do you interpret those facts. What conclusion do you come to with the same materials in front of you? And a lot of it comes to your presupposition. Where do you start? What presupposition are you coming to the table with? And your own personal bias, which we all have.
That's why one of the wisest men ever said, I know that I know nothing.
Right.
We have this Dunning-Kruger syndrome that is so evident today in social media that people that know less, they are more confident than people that know more. Yeah. So the actual people that study stuff, they are actually more insecure. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. Well, it's like the more you know, the
you
more you
experience that in your life. Because
the more you know, the more you realize you don't know a lot. That's how it is. I mean, I'm that way. I'm a writer too. And the more I read, the more I realize how much I haven't read. Yeah. And as a writer, the more I read and the more I write, the more I realize how high the bar can be. I mean, what was it? What's his name? I want to say Jacob Marley. Brandon Marlowe. It was the guy, the contemporary of Shakespeare.
John?
Marlon Brando? No. That's the actor. No. Okay, so
Vito Corleone.
So Shakespeare's contemporary, he said that Shakespeare was a good writer, was as good or one of the best writers, even though his Latin was bad and his Greek was atrocious. He was still one of the greatest writers, even though that was the case. It used to be expected that if you're going to be a good writer, you have to be fluent in Greek and ancient Greek and Latin. Now we've just kind of, J.K. Rowling can come and drop a bestseller without having, barely learned English, you know.
one of the we go back to that, but in this regard of knowing, thinking that you know everything, there's a beautiful story in Brazil that a friend of mine that unfortunately passed, Rafael, he used to tell the story in the end of his lectures, and it's one of my favorite stories. He said, "Well, there's this native and this white man on a beach."
Hmm.
So the native goes on a sand and he draws this circle and he said, "Well, this is everything that we know, we the natives."
Hmm.
Okay? Then, of course, the white man, so egotistical and proud, he draws a huge circle around the native circle and said, "Well,
Right.
this is what white men know."
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then the native goes there and draw a still bigger circle around both circles and said, "Well, this is what both you and our people don't know."
Yeah.
So no matter how much you know, it's still a lot more that you don't know.
Right. And
So-
the more you learn, the more you study, the more you realize, yeah, there's so much more.
But back to the literature, because I know that's a dear subject to you. We have also in Brazil, which is this internationally, which actually we, from time to time, I follow him on Twitter, and we interact a couple of times. Paulo Coelho.
Uh-huh.
So he wrote The Alchemist. So it's a beautiful book. I totally recommend. And but he's also not this amazingly. How can I put that? He's a storyteller. He's not like this artisan of words.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
put
yeah.
it that. And a lot of people criticize him, but we have to understand one thing. I have the same passion for words that you have. I speak several languages, and I really like, the words, and I like, different. You can tell by my accent that English is not my first language, but what I think is happening now, and I think what the Harry Potter, the Rowling, what's her name?
J.K. Rowling,
J.K.
yeah.
Rowling and Paulo Coelho both are big examples of a time that maybe, because people read less and less every day.
Yeah.
So I believe that literature had to become a little more accessible to these people that don't read anymore. They don't
Yeah.
even know the basic daily words. There are some podcasts that is very funny. They put a lot of people together and they ask them to say 3 countries, and people are not able to
Yeah.
name 3 countries.
Right.
So they're not able to spell. They're not able to anything. So I believe that in this world, we need people like Paulo Coelho, and we need people like J.K. Rowling to make people interested in reading.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, are they like Shakespeare? Not, but we are 500 years later. And
Yeah.
again, I respect a lot. I think that we are losing a lot of traditions. I'm a person that I love traditions. I was born 150 years too late.
Yeah. I
So-
can relate.
Yeah, but I think that in this case, it's better to have people reading
And not reading at all,
not
yeah.
too sophisticated literature than reading nothing and just dancing on
That's true.
front of TikTok and pointing here, pointing
There
there.
definitely is a benefit to having something that pulls people in. Yeah.
Oh, doing, I'm sorry if you are watching this and you like what I'm going to say now, but I cannot believe that I watch a lot of YouTube because I want to understand this platform. And I cannot believe that one of the most watched things is reactions. I
Yeah.
swear to God, maybe I'm too old. I'm 40. Maybe I'm too old. I don't understand what's the purpose of having someone to watch, let's say, a clip from Elvis Presley singing, and you have the person like, oh, that's good. I don't understand. watch Elvis Presley singing, and it's fine. Why do I have to see this person reacting to an interview, reacting to watch the interview, and then you have your own reactions? You don't need reactions from.
Well,
I'm sorry, maybe I'm stupid.
Another one is the people who watch people playing video games.
Yeah, I love that.
Why would you watch someone else? I don't understand that.
Yeah, why don't you play?
But I know people who do that, especially like.
No, I can understand if you want to learn some tricks or something.
Yeah, but no, they just watch them play the game.
Yeah, for hours.
For hours.
Oh, another thing, unboxing. I buy something and then I'm going to open, and you're going to watch me open the thing. Oh God! I said, we need to step into this, world of YouTube and Rumble, because I swear to God, we have so many things to say that are, in my opinion, more interesting than opening boxes and reacting to stuff. But anyway,
but you have to develop someone who's interested in those things, And let me back to language real quick. It's interesting, you speak more languages than I do and have traveled more globally than I have. There are different languages have different writings, and different languages have different caliber of writing, and you wonder, or I wonder, is the language is obviously the ability to communicate thoughts. Have certain languages, the best writing has been undoubtedly written in ancient Greek and Latin, and I'd add English in there. There are certain languages that haven't experienced the same breadth of philosophical depth of of language that you'd bring to the table and say this is one of the greatest works ever written. And we talked about this a little bit the other day. Do you think the language has some effect on people's caliber of thinking? Even?
Absolutely, because there are some things. And I was giving to you the other day the Charles Aznavour song, which is, of course, older than it's like maybe my father's and grandfather's time, but I like old stuff. I'm sorry. But he has a song called Hier encore, still yesterday. I'm not fluent in French, by the way. But the song said, still yesterday, like Hier encore, j'avais 20 ans, I was 20.
Yeah.
And he says, j'ai caressé le temps. I caressed the time. You cannot say that in English. You can say, oh, how can I caress the time?
Right, yeah.
Right? There's no way. So some things you cannot convey unless you're speaking that language. I mentioned in Portuguese, we have a word called saudade. And you have in Spanish, soledad, which is the feeling of missing someone. But we have a specific word for that.
Right.
The word love, in Greek, you have 4 different loves, right?
Agape,
so,
phileo,
yeah. So there are things that in those loves are completely different.
Yeah.
If you go and say, for example, philos is the love for something, for some study, for some science, for some. You have eros, which is the erotic love, and then you have agape, which is the highest love, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Greek believed that friendship was one of the highest forms of love, because you can have many friends. Of course, you have some, especially women, they have some jealousy among friends and stuff like that. But and which one is the fourth?
Agape, phileo,
Eros.
Yeah. I forget the fourth one. Those are the 3 I'm familiar with.
Okay.
There is a fourth one, though.
Yeah. Anyways, but that's the point. You have words for different things, and unfortunately, I still have problems. You guys that are watching me, you see me making a lot of grammar mistakes, because there are some things that I cannot. I know they are wrong. I mean, they're right, but I cannot put it in my head. For example, I don't understand how people can go on the plane, because I go in the plane.
You're not the first Spanish speaker who's told me that.
Yeah, I'm not on the top of the plane like I'm riding a horse. I remember even George Carlin said that. It's like it's very windy up there. I'm not gonna. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Like in my humble and ignorant mind, is impossible to pre-board. You you either boarding or not.
Right.
So
yeah, but hey, English does have multiple meanings for the word of ass. You know, your long ass, a bad ass, a slow ass, or shit. You know, ape shit is different than horse shit. Is different than bat shit crazy. You know.
Yeah, my God, it's unbelievable. But I mean, I'm learning, and I apologize to you that is watching if I make any mistake. But anyways,
but it's interesting to think about language and how that affects people's even ability to think.
Yeah.
And you wonder if people's, how much of the work that comes out of a society is a reflection of the culture versus how much of it is a reflection of, maybe the climate, what the temperature is versus how much religion versus how much of it is a reflection of the language and the language's ability to translate thought. Because a more limited vocabulary, a more limited language is a more limited ability to think through things. So, I mean, you have to even wonder how many languages, languages obviously are developed over years and years, but like, how many societies have intentionally limited language to prevent people, and I don't know the answer to this, to prevent the common man from being able to have as much thought, just like 1984. Who's to say that hasn't happened with certain languages? Because there are certain languages we don't, not to degrade Spanish at all, but like, we have what Cervantes is Don Quixote.
Don Quixote, oh God.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not familiar with you're not going to get the same works in Spanish that you get in ancient Greek. Yeah. How much of that is a result of culture? How much of that is a result, how much of that is a result of language? I don't know.
Cervantes was born on September 29, the same day I was born, and the same day Pat was born.
Really?
Yeah, it's our birthday.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I want to read something that goes in what you said, and is regarding language, but it's also connected to different cultures. Because I have from my father's side, I'm Lebanese Arab, and from my mother's side, I'm European, and I was raised in Brazil. So my education and everything is pretty much a Western education, and I grew up watching American movies and watching American TV and stuff like that. But we have this, what's the word? We have this ego, thinking that we know it all, thinking that we figured everything out, and we are arrogant as Westerners to think that we figured out everything. We colonized the whole world. I have Italian, French, and British blood, all the colonizers. So, but I give you an example. We have this idea of freedom and things that I believe are very important. Don't get me wrong. But I give you an example that I was intrigued when I found out, which is regarding arranged marriages in India. Mm-hmm. If you see statistically, I was shocked to know that, but statistically, they have a lot better results than marriages by love.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And
but their expectation is different.
Exactly. Why? Because we live in a world that today, if this is not working well, you throw it away. Yeah. So the reason why we are this disposable culture.
Yeah.
So we don't fix things anymore. I remember you were too young, but I remember in my parents' and grandparents' time. My grandparents had one refrigerator there from the 30s.
Yeah.
Still working. Every once in a while they had to change a part or something, but it was still there. It was beautiful. They had modern ones too, but they kept that one.
Yeah.
because that's my European side. We ate a lot, but well, the Lebanese, my God, that's why I'm fat, because I ate from all sides. But they used to keep things, and when something was broken, you take it to be fixed, and then you have like a TV set for 25 years, and now uh, if something is broken, you just throw it away. And the thing that this is being transferred to relationships.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a part
So,
of our society. Subscriptions,
exactly.
Just
So
trying
the
to.
arranged marriage, uh, people they already know that they go like with like no, not many emotions, and they have to make each other
Right.
fall in love, and they know there's going to be hard times, and they know, so the expectations are down there, as you said,
Right.
and then they make it work.
Yeah.
And whereas our way of doing things is to create, and that leads to the other subject of relationships, which is
Right.
very, right now, is extremely acid in all over the internet, which is women, because of the online dating, they have so high expectations. They all want a guy over 6 feet tall that makes six figures a year, and with other sixes,
Right. Yeah.
6 inches, whatever,
Yeah.
and and they don't realize that these people are like 1-2% of the American populations according to the census.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but because they have so many guys hitting on them online, because now with this, you are hit. Women get messages from all over the world, and these guys, they kind to pay to fly them, so they think they have all these options in the relationship realm, which is not the fact. They want the intimate. We cannot say the word, but they want the intimate thing. They don't want the
Right.
actual relationship. And but because of that, they think that, okay, I have like 50 guys in my DMs, so I have all these options.
Yeah.
They don't understand that, and that's creating a problem to man, because the average guy. So, according to statistics of dating apps, 80% of women are going out with 20% of the guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what about the other 80% of the guys? They are getting nothing. The average Joe that works that is like 5'6" or whatever, and works, I don't know where, at a McDonald's or whatever. He has no chance. He
Right.
has no chance, because the cute girl that works by his side, wants someone above her. It's called hypergamy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who is impossible to him. There's no way this guy can date, and that's why another statistic says that guys between 18 and 30, 1 out of the 3 are not having intimate relations.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what that we have, if you are a woman and who's watching us, you would understand. You have your hormones when you are doing those days. You got a little crazy and stuff like that. We have our hormones, 24 hours pushing us to. So imagine a guy that has absolutely no chance to have a relationship with a girl. And okay, I'm not saying, unfortunately, all this terrible tragedies that happen with the shootings and things like that. Unfortunately, we have a percentage of our population, and that's also statistical, that have some mental health and eventually is going to do something crazy. But imagine all those guys that are lonely. They are not having their how can I call that, their discharge of hormones.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And how can you build a society like that? These people are, because our strongest impulse. It's stronger than eating.
But we've done a couple things to create that, I think, in our society. We've taken away, like, for many years now, taken away the ideal of monogamy. We've also taken away the ideal of the nuclear family. And then we've also pumped our society full of, sexual dysphoria, gender dysphoria. We've created we've encouraged all kinds of different forms of relationships that would have been anathema to our society, even 20 years ago. And now we've pumped women full of this idea of, be the breadwinner, be the CEO, be the leader, be the, go in there and don't take shit from a man. And we've pushed that. And then we've also pushed this whole toxic masculinity thing, like men don't be aggressive, don't pursue this. And also all the shit that's happened in the world is your fucking fault. And so you need to shut up and sit down and not be ambitious. So we've created all these emasculated men who are timid to go to anyone, because then even if you have a girl who even if you have a girl who you're scared to death, you're going to get the Me Too movement if you even pursue a girl. But then no girl, girls actually want a guy who's kind of aggressive. Yeah, I mean, not physically necessarily, but a guy who's pursuing her. But then guys are scared to do that. So you created this whole dichotomy where the girl has to be the pursuer, the girl has to be the aggressive one, and then we've created this bar, this expectation that's way up here. And then we've also pumped our society full of pornography. So, the guy's taken away all the drive in a guy, because guess what? He can go see any woman he wants for free online, beat off, and that's part of what, if you want to take away a guy's drive, give him sex any time of the day in the privacy of his bedroom, or for the guys who are getting it, they're never going to commit to a girl, or usually won't, because they're getting as much as they want all the time anyways.
I think that one of the main problems is, and that's our fault too, that's a mea culpa. I think we lied to women for a long time because we wanted the intimacy. Sure. So we never, hey, of course you're right. I'll never disagree. Yeah. We didn't disagree. We didn't tell them the truth, and now it's too late. Yeah. We are paying the price. So what I think the problem is, one of the main problems is that everything you mentioned generated something that what women want intellectually is not what actually aroused them. That's the point. Right. What they want unconsciously is different than what they want intellectually. They want a man that is take care of his appearance, is emotionally available, sensitive. I mean, unfortunately, all these guys are gay.
Yeah,
or the great majority. They are well organized. It's they create this something that doesn't exist, like a six-pack, and of course you have, but it's like less than 1% of guys.
Right. Yeah.
So unfortunately, what happens is the majority of women are sharing this guys, because if 80% of women are going out with 20% of guys, they are sharing the same guy. That's simple math.
Have you ever read the Greek play Lysistrata?
Yes, I actually was the second play I directed.
Oh, really? No way.
Yeah.
Well, the concept,
Women's of Athens.
Yeah. Right. The
Aristophanes.
Right. Yeah. So the storyline, for anyone listening who doesn't know it, is these the women, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while since I've read it, the women don't want their husbands to go to war.
Yeah.
And so they basically say they're going to abstain from having sex with any of them, and realize they can run the entire city.
They can run everything.
By just withholding sex, It just shows a little bit how men are wired, but also the power that women can have, in that regard.
That's another thing we share. It's like... I'm saying all these things. I just want to make very sure we are both heterosexual men.
Yeah.
Because we have so many things in common, but we are both, in
fact, your wife's running around somewhere.
Yeah. I'm very much, but we have so many things in common that I said, well, it's a waste if we don't, because we both love ancient Greek culture and things like that. And but yes, I think that this is one of the powers they have, because they hold the keys, the keys for the intimate relationship and intimate relationship, and we actually hold the relationship part. We decide if we're going to commit with the woman, if we're going to marry a woman. We are the ones that propose. So we guard the gates of relationship, and they guard the gates of intimacy.
Well, and it's like My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where the woman says, the man is the head of the household, but the woman is the neck and turns the head wherever she wants.
Yeah.
But like at what point is and we see that throughout every Greek tragedy or otherwise throughout every piece of literature and in history. What's the great downfall of every man? I mean, you get two, right? Two great downfalls of every man. It's pride and women. I mean, that's the downfall of so many men.
Yeah.
You go through every Bible story, and whether it's Bathsheba or Jezebel, you go through every,
Greek Icarus.
Yeah, Icarus. I mean, it's always, women, but it's when, Adam and Eve, like it's
lust and pride.
Right, lust and pride are the two great downfalls of a man being successful. And how do you rein those in? And it doesn't mean you don't have ambition, and it doesn't mean you don't have a woman. But like, how do you not be controlled and tempted by those things?
As I always say, I've studied a lot of things. I said that to you many times, because I'm the old guy, so I'm giving you some advice. But I mean, if I can summarize, I've studied all Eastern, not all, but Buddhism and Shinto, Japan Shinto, Zen Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. I've studied a lot of other cultures and other religions, philosophies, Stoicism, a lot. And if I can summarize in one word, is balance, harmony. Always, never go, of course, for example, as I always say, there's a huge difference between ambition and greed.
Yeah.
So ambition means sky's the limit. I want to reach the stars.
Yeah.
But greed means I want to step on other people's heads. I have no scruples. I don't care what I'm going to do to get there. So that's a difference. So that doesn't mean that you have to be this person that, oh my God, I'm so humble. I'm so... a friend of mine used to say that if you think, I'm a piece of shit. One day, by repeating that that's the mantra thing. One day you're going to start seeing the flies all over your head. You are becoming that because you're repeating that so much. But always the balance. Why don't middle ground? Why can't you be ambitious but try to control your greed? It's okay to be ambitious. That's what drives progress. And we talk about capitalism. You need to be industrious. You need to be bold. Like that song from Desiree, you had to be bad.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to be, but with control yourself. Don't be is the same as rage. You don't want to be the most agreeable person in the world because nobody will respect you.
Right.
But at the same way, if you are overboard in rage, you're going to end up dead.
Yeah.
So, everything with a measure, everything with parsimony. You have this word, parsimony, or with balance and
well, measure. That's why you want to have, like, the word meek, it means having great strength and withholding it, not exercising it. And being a danger. Jordan Peterson talks about being a dangerous man, but not, utilizing that danger.
Yeah.
And that's real power, when you have the power to do something and don't exercise it.
Yeah.
You have restraint, you have control. That means you not only have the ability, you have the wherewithal to not utilize that ability. And that's true power, to have self-control,
And that's the whole concept of chivalry.
Yeah.
The warrior, he has all this power, and he uses to protect the weak, to protect the children, to protect the widows, to protect women. and to actually protect nature. Even I
Right,
think
yeah.
that's the evolution of chivalry. Something I try to preserve in the world. So you have great power, but remember the great philosopher Ben Parker. You know, one
No, I know the name, but I don't.
he was the uncle of Peter Parker, Spider-Man.
Oh,
He
yeah, I know Ben
said,
Parker.
excuse me. He said, with great power comes
Great responsibility.
great responsibility.
Yeah.
So that's the
Well,
reality.
and the whole idea of being artists, the whole idea of art is, I mean, one of many ideas of art is creating order out of chaos, and that's the whole idea with controlling, yourself and being one of these people who has great power. It's creating order out of that, creating order out of the chaos of the human emotional spectrum of, get all these emotions, we have all these like desires, we have all these crazy thoughts, and creating some systematic blueprint for our thought process and some, like worldview and some organization in our life of, and that affects everything in the way we live.
Like taming the animal that
Yeah.
we have inside us, the caveman that is inside us, and that's the whole.
That's
the whole
humanity,
thing.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the whole thing. We are fighting for all the hardwiring brain we have about.
But see, our society has pushed so much that you to not do that, to just how you feel is how you are. I mean, to the point of like how you feel today is literally what you are. You are what you feel. If you feel like a different gender, if you feel like a different, like, and then also you do your impulse. Whatever your impulse is, act on that.
And that's endless.
It's endless.
The problem of that is endless. It's like cultural appropriation. Yeah. That's endless. But please continue.
It's the antithesis of a powerful person. It's the antithesis of being someone who can be successful. You cannot be successful if you give into your desires every time you have a desire. And to some degree, everyone acknowledges that. Like, okay, you get angry at someone, you want to murder them. I think most people would agree you shouldn't act on that impulse, but like
it's hard sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I have a couple of people that
I have a list, but
yeah,
I have a PowerPoint presentation of it, so I mean.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I do.
That's a great idea.
Maybe I'll show you one day.
Yeah.
But like that's the antithesis of someone who is successful, because if you can't control your impulses, you can't move forward. I mean, a person who can't wake up in time. That's why, again, I'm a reference Jordan Peterson here. He talks about in his steps for life. Making your bed is part of creating order. And if but we've pushed in our society, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just go with the impulse. Go with the impulse. Go, have sex with whoever you want. Go, spend your money as flagrantly as you want. Have no restraint. Why do you think they don't teach us finances in our school system? I made it through all of college and never had any financial courses, anything on credit cards. And yet I spent how many years of wasted learning of algebra, and I can't, how many years was it before I could even apply that outside of the school into my finances?
That's another subject that, education, we have to talk about this, because 90% of what you learn you're never going to use, and you're just wasting your time and your hard drive here. So, and that's another project that we have about the solution for education to change this whole thing. But anyways, I agree with you, and I think that if we open, and again, as I said, I'm heterosexual, he and him are pronouns, and I think you too.
Yes.
But we respect, if you're gay, if you're transgender, if you are, we both have great, working in the arts. We have great friends, and we respect your right to be or do whatever you want.
Yeah, I should have clarified this so people listening got to this first. But yeah. The whole point of this critical thinker is to make sure that we're thinking through it. So we have certain opinions and will that might disagree with you, and we sure hope we do, so that like disagree with you in certain ways, whether it be religion, politics, our worldview, or whatever, so that these conversations can be sparked. Because at the end of the day, we want to be in the room with people that differ from us on everything,
And also, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I speak for myself. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm open to change my mind if I have enough good arguments and facts. I'm willing to change my mind. I evolve. I think that's the purpose of having an intellect, is to evolve. So you can, if we're saying something that you don't agree, we are debating in a civil way, in a very respectful way, and we can talk about it. That's our goal, is make you reach your opinion using your own opinion, using your own method. And the same with us. We can change our minds. But what I was saying about transgenders and people like that, the problem is when you create this many pronouns, there's no end.
Right.
Now you don't have like they, them, they. You have like clown, whatever. It's endless.
Right.
And it's like cultural appropriation. For example, if we cannot wear, for example, like Asian clothes, for example, I'm a master of martial arts. If I cannot wear the uniform that of my martial arts are Japanese, so is it cultural appropriation that I'm wearing the uniform from the martial art that I trained 45 years? Well, I don't think so. But that means that also the Japanese cannot wear Western clothes, and then the natives cannot wear. It's endless. You cannot. It's an endless problem, and that's, in my opinion, that's the problem. You create a bottomless hole.
Well, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. Every house in America is made wooden framed house, right? Framed house. We frame our houses. That's German. Correct me if I'm wrong. So what? I mean, you can't live in a house unless you're German? That's ridiculous.
I have some DNA. We have to. I was talking to Kristen the other day. I said, well, because I have some Jewish DNA, 3% of Ashkenazi, and then I said, what's the actual percentage that allows me to make jokes? I have an amount of Italian. What's the amount I can make jokes with Italian? What amount I can? Well, it has to be a minimum.
I have an autistic sister and a lesbian sister, so I feel like I have a lot of freedom here.
A lot of freedom.
I have an Asian adopted sister, so
there you go.
I have free range.
Yeah, and that's the point. I think that we talked about that the other day too. Like I think we both believe that God gave us something called free will.
Yeah.
And there's no human, not the Pope, not any patriarch, not any leader, pastor or whomever, or imam or rabbi or guru that can actually revoke that from you. We all have free will. And that's the thing.
Well, and the ability to, like I mentioned earlier, I believe the ability to self-govern, or the freedom to, like the autonomy of man, like as individuals. And we believe, I believe adamantly in people's own right to come to their own conclusions.
Absolutely.
And to have their own opinions on that. And we should be coming to those conclusions with logic, and I will fight to the
Facts.
death.
Not emotions.
Right, for someone else's right to disagree with me.
That's a new one. I didn't use this one.
That's kind of weird. It's like children's.
Yeah. Cheering. That's us cheering.
Yeah. But like, I will fight to the death for someone else's right to be able to have the autonomy to make their own decisions. But also fight to the death for them to not impose those opinions or beliefs upon me, but to be able to debate me with logic on those, And
in my opinion, that's one of the main causes of conflict in our world today, is because people are, and that goes from the dinner table to global wars, is people trying to impose their own truth on other people.
Yeah.
That's the main problem. If we can respect ourselves and we disagree. You guys will see we disagree in a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But we respect each other. We want to grow and we want to learn and we want to take our disagreement and make it something that is profitable for both of our minds.
Well, and let me bring up a contrast here. What's the difference? You had the periods of time where you had Christians, and I am a Christian, where the Christians proselytized to the death people that didn't convert to their religion, versus what's the difference between that and now being canceled on social media platforms for not agreeing with the current narrative on a certain thing, like transgenders' rights to play on the sport that they identify with.
Oh my God!
But like, without getting into that subject,
we can go there. We have to go there eventually.
Eventually, but like, you get canceled because you don't agree with that opinion. Versus, what's the difference between that and saying, okay, you're canceled for not, the Salem witch trials, like obviously they're killing people there, but you're canceled or ostracized from society for not having the same religion. It's exactly the same. Ostracizing someone, the death, we haven't gotten there where like people are being killed for this, but like ostracizing people for not having the same religious beliefs is the same as ostracizing someone for not having the same beliefs on gender.
I posted the other day. I said, well, I'm against prejudice. Mm-hmm. I'm against treating other people in a not civil way. I think we should respect everyone. I don't care your race. I don't care your gender. I don't care your pronoun. We should all be civil to each other. I'm also a Christian. I studied a lot of Buddhism, but I'm also a Christian, Catholic. And I believe Jesus said, love thy neighbor. That's the most important thing, in my opinion, about Christianity. That's my opinion. But I think the problem we have today is we have to choose if we are having freedom of speech or not. Because, I don't care how ridiculous is your idea. If we have freedom of speech, you should be allowed to say it. I don't care how radical it's your idea, you should be allowed to say it. Otherwise, it's not freedom of speech. It's a selective freedom. It's like only the things that we think, you should be okay with that. So this cancellation thing, okay, if we say, okay, we have to live under those ideas. We cannot talk about this or that. Then it's fine. Then we don't have freedom of speech. But we cannot say it's an antinomy. We cannot have both existing at the same time.
Obviously throughout history, things change, and we have, the commonplace of, like general consensus on how a society is and a culture are going to function change, and there are growing pains in that changing. However, I think there needs to be clarity, there needs to be clarity on, here are the parameters. And a big frustration, I'll give you an example. I was working on a set, where we had one of the actors was, frustrated with something happening on set and wanted to leave the set, but was like kind of wrestling with that. And as they were deciding how they were going to handle this, they kept changing the parameters and the barometer of what needed to take place on set for them to stay on the set, which was understandable considering the situation, but it was frustrating for the director to not have the clarity of this is what's happening, this is what needs to happen for us to move forward. And so I think you need that clarity, and that's how I encourage this actor, like, we just need to have clarity. If like, here's the parameters of what needs to happen for us to move forward, or I'm walking, and we had the same situation with the director, or not the director, the writer, he was not clear on, he should have been like, okay, you need this changed, we're done with you, we're going to recast, or fine, we're willing to do that and move forward. Instead, he was waffling back and forth, and I feel like we're having similar situation in our society where people are not drawing clear lines in the sand of like, okay, this is how it needs to be, and I'm moving forward. Instead, it's like the bar keeps changing, and it's hard to keep up with a bar that's constantly changing. Whereas, like, you can't keep up moment by moment with even knowing where we are. What's okay? What's acceptable? Okay, is this acceptable now? I'm not sure. Am I allowed to use these words now? What was acceptable 5 minutes ago is now no longer acceptable to say in schools.
That's exactly what I said. There's no end. But in my opinion, what is lacking in our society today is something that in every free society, especially in republics, okay, especially in the political game, but in everything, in every relation, in every relationship, human relationship you have, friendships, romantic relationships, I don't care, professional relationships, is something called constructive criticism.
Yeah.
So you're going to have hard conversations with people, but the goal shouldn't be to cancel that person. It shouldn't be to destroy that person, but to grow and to compromise and to get to, a better place for both of you, when you can learn from that and end up being better. So I think we don't have this idea. We either love or hate people. That's what we were talking. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is that we are not labeled this or that. We should be able to adopt points of different agendas and without having a problem, because it's not an emotional thing, it's an actual logical thing. I give you an example. I am pro guns, but I am in favor of people being I don't want legally blind people to own guns. I don't want people that, if you cannot drive, you cannot shoot a gun. I don't want people with a criminal history to have guns. I don't want crazy people to have guns. Okay, that's my opinion, but I'm pro guns. If you don't like guns, don't buy a gun. Nobody's forcing you to buy a gun, but you should have the right to protect yourself. But I'm against hunting for sport. I'm against. That's my opinion. You can disagree. You can hunt. Do whatever you want to do legally, of course. But I'm against, because I don't think that proves anything. I don't think that proves your superiority to a lion, to shoot a lion from 100 yards away with a high precision rifle. If you want to hunt a lion, I give you a knife. If you are able to wrestle the lion, then I'll be impressed. But other than that, I don't think killing other sentient beings is a nice thing. But I'm in favor of guns, and I wouldn't hesitate shooting someone that is trying to harm me or my family or my friends. You see why? This is like a paradox.
Yeah.
Because you're either pro guns or you are pro, animals, and no, you can be both. You can be, choose your own ideas and your own things. Don't be afraid of being yourself. The beauty is that you can think with your own mind. It's not because you identify yourself more to a conservative side that everything Trump says or everything a conservative says is supposed to be law. And the same thing in the other side. It's not, you don't have to go with everything, and that's the problem. That's why we are in the situation we are now, because people are just adopting agendas. No, I don't want to be like Trump, so I want to be woke. So now, I'm not man, I'm not a woman, I'm a sack of rice, and my pronouns are ricey, and so yeah, you go to a crazy lengths. Okay, if you are feeling inadequate in the body you are living in, I think you should change. If that's what you want to do, is your body, you do whatever you want. If you're an adult, another thing that people are crazy about, that I remember that conversation during Trump's administration, talking about the transgender in the military. Are you pro or con? I said, well, it's not about ideology. It's not about politics. That's what people don't understand. Some decisions supposed to be scientific. For example, you have to see if a transgender person is psychologically able to respond to an actual action situation, the same as the hormonal change and everything doesn't affect their ability of fighting. That's the whole purpose. It's not about, oh, I like transgender. No, I don't want to see transgender in the army. It's not about that. It's about, is this person fit as a man or a woman?
I'm gonna get if I start mentioning my opinions on here, I'm gonna get canceled so fast. But I'm not even gonna bring up the guns because I have like I have extreme views on those. But I mean, this is even more. But like, I'm just spitballing here, so know this. But like, it just occurred to me. Okay, so what's the difference? Someone gets a, gender change. There's hormones that are incorporated with that change you too. So it's a physical surgery to change some of you physically, and a hormonal surgery, like procedure to change hormones. What's the difference between that and a girl getting a boob job and taking anti-anxiety and anti-depression medicine? Maybe there's a great answer.
Yeah.
But, it does, so in the military, now this is just devil's advocate with that, you put a girl in there, they're not going to question whether you're on anti-anxiety medication, but that does change you hormonally, or birth control. Man, if you're taking birth control, that really changes your emotions, your hormones. So what's the, logically, what's the difference between putting those people on,
No, listen, I absolutely agree, but my problem with this, and again, I said, if you are not happy, if you are depressed with your body,
do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. Do
I'm not saying don't do it.
I always say, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Whatever you like, if it's legal, if you are an adult, a consenting legal adult, do whatever you want and be happy. That's from the bottom of our hearts here.
Or if it's illegal and you can get away with it. Kidding. Sort of.
No, I think this is more appropriate. No, anyways, what I want to say with that is my problem with that, the way things are being handled is today, if I wake up in the morning saying, okay, today I identify myself as a woman. I think it was Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan. He said that, okay, I identify myself as a black lesbian now. So, so what? So am I allowed now to go into the women's bathroom? We have to have some criteria. I'm not saying that, if you feel, again, do it. But, okay, first, you have to do it to be able to.
Right, yeah.
Imagine both of us with this beard. I feel like a woman today. Let's go to see women naked.
Well, and at the end of the day, these conversations, like you were saying earlier, have to be had, be had with people, because, at the end of the day, where's your ideology? Is your ideology where you believe that people should have the right to make a decision and have these conversations? Do you believe in that truth will prevail and you should be having these discussions for truth to prevail and believe in the liberty of man? Or do you believe that a certain agenda should be pressed because you believe that is right and nothing else is, and you're going to push that agenda to the nth degree?
Yeah, again, let's go back to measure, harmony, common sense. I don't think people have common sense anymore, and I like the British way of saying it's a good sense.
Yeah.
And
because it's not so common.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have to. So yeah, I absolutely agree. And the problem is, why don't you create if you first you have to go to a period to make sure that that's what you want.
Right.
And if you want that, you should, walk the walk.
Yeah.
If you want to know the interior of a women's bathroom, you have to go through the process to, if that's what you want, right? Am I crazy here?
Yeah.
No. So, anyway, so, and again, that's the problem. People go to extremes, and again, I want people to be happy. I want people to
But
be
at what
comfortable,
point? Well,
but that cannot interfere in our comfort, in our.
But now let's say, I mean, to what degree? Because like you get someone who believes that the best thing, and this is what they want, and they've thought about it, is to commit suicide, and they
You cannot say this word.
"Oh, okay,
To delete themselves.
euthanize themselves." Yeah. What like to what extent do they have like? And I'm not saying. I mean, I'm not don't necessarily have an opinion on this one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what do they? Most people would say no, you can't do that. You can't allow them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the difference? What do you allow someone to do? What can you allow if it's not harming anyone else, or if it is harming someone else and the other person wants to be harmed? I mean, let's say I desire to murder you, it would make me happy. You desire to be murdered, it would make you happy. We both agree consensually to do that. Why would that be? Why prevent that? Or why not prevent? Like what? Where do you draw that line? When do you allow someone to do something? I mean, is it completely up to them if it's not hurting anyone, or if it is hurting someone and that person wants to be hurt? Like where do you like?
Yeah, I think that's why something like natural law is so important. It's beyond politics. It's beyond. It's based on nature, and I think like everything, it should evolve. But when you're talking about lives and things like that, I think it's a little over.
Yeah.
But for example, in the bedroom, for example, I think if you have two consensual adults and there's no crime being committed, I mean, although some practices are crimes in some countries, but I mean, if you have two consensual adults, that's what I want to say. I don't care what you are, what you like. It's up to you and your partner or partners, plural. But of course, when you're talking about lives, and that's like,
well, and I would probably err on the extreme. Like, if you want to have a transgender surgery, go ahead. Like if you want to commit or erase yourself, or what's the word? I don't know.
Delete yourself.
If you want to delete yourself, I have no problem with that. Doesn't affect me. If there are two people in the situation I mentioned where like, hey, I want you to take my life, the other person's like, I want to take your life, I have no problem saying go ahead. Like, personally, that's an extreme view. But like, I believe that I don't believe on impeding in someone else's freedom, and as I'm a libertarian to the extreme degree. Let things happen. I don't believe I should step in to prevent something unethical or unmoral from happening. If it takes away someone else's,
yeah, I agree with you that we don't have the right. But for example, if I'm seeing
someone in the alley mug, sure, I can step in there.
Yeah,
I believe I have the right,
yeah.
and I should. I have the obligation to step in and prevent something like that.
Yeah.
Because then, guess what? It's not like she's being taken advantage of.
Yeah. Although sometimes, when you try to protect women that are being abused by their partners, usually you get the worst because they choose not to prosecute the partner, and you ended up sometimes even. Anyways. Yeah, I mean, we live in a crazy world.
But that's a different scenario because someone is being taken advantage of. Someone is being, abused. And that's different than someone doing it to themselves where their own desires to have that happen, In my mind.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you, although I think we, as a society, we have a duty of trying to create avenues so people don't give up on life, don't give up on anything, because
which I think is good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's up to us if we have compassion, which I think is the most important thing we need in this world today. Compassion. which means not pity, is like understanding the person's suffering, and that goes to love thy neighbor is very important part of love thy neighbor. And I think if we want to live in a society when we cultivate compassion, we should create ways that people shouldn't get extreme ideas and extreme measures, because life is so beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing, and of course, is what is ugly about mankind is very ugly, you know. But what is beautiful about mankind is also amazing. And I give you an example. One of the things that I always get emotional about is when I see, like, for example, like this fourth grade kid has cancer and has to shave the head, and the whole class shaves the head together. This is this is what mankind is about. I think we are inherently good, and the proof of that is remember I mentioned about in the Second World War, Hitler was initially the plan to kill the Jews was by bullet. So they put all the people in like this trenches or whatever, and they would shoot them, and then they just put some dirt on them. But uh, some problems started to happen because the soldiers started to have some psychological problems. They were not even the ones that believed in the cause. They started to have problems. They're not feeling they're doing the right thing. So the measure was, okay, let's bring the worst, more bloodthirsty soldiers from the front to do this job because they love to kill, they love to fight. Again, they put these guys to execute the Jews. They also start having psychological problems. And then they saw that, okay, this is not working, and the bullets, the ammunition is expensive, and then they started using the gas chambers. So a terrible, terrible, terrible part of history. But we can take something good from it, which is humans are good. We have this good nature, and we should capitalize that. We should invest in that instead of invest in our dark side. So I think that should be the message. We should cultivate compassion because we have that, and but it's like everything. I remember one of my masters, my meditation masters and Buddhist masters used to say that the mind is a wild horse. You have to tame it every day. You know, the horse, if you don't ride the horse every day, even if it's the most obedient horse, if you don't ride him like for a month, the next time you're going to be on the horse, he's not going to let you ride, because you have to always work. And your mind is the same thing. Because Buddhism, to me, is not a religion. It's more like a training of the mind. Because you have to tame your mind all the time. You have to discipline your mind all the time. And we're getting to the end. I would say my since I'm talking about this, I'm giving my last remarks, and then some announcements in the end, and then I'll pass to you. What I want to say is one of the teachers, the Buddhist teachers that I had in the past, he said, not even ourselves are the way we want. We are always like, we could work out more. Mm-hmm. We could, lose some pounds. We could drink a little less. We could eat less sugar. I definitely could eat less sugar. There's not even ourselves. We are not the way we want it to be. Why we want the other people to be exactly the way we want to be? So, I mean, that's my message. After he has his final remarks, I go with some announcements, and then
we'll have to next time maybe start with this or throw it in there somehow, as people are going to be like, wait, what? We didn't hear the end, because I disagree. I think we are not inherently good. So that might be a good way. I think we're inherently evil. And that might be a good place to start next time with the conversation. But I do think compassion is something that is paramount, and being able to empathize with other people, and not just empathize, but actually have, heart for other people in a society. And we mentioned, societies and how our societies function. I think there is such a huge difference. I mean, why is there an issue with anxiety and depression and stress so much in our culture right now? I mean, how much of that is the way our culture is structured? I mean, there were other societies where it was if you want a successful life, you die on the battlefield. That's not how we don't have that mentality here in the United States. Although I might share a little bit of that sentiment with that culture. Well, what do we, and maybe we can bring up this next time also, what do we prioritize as a society? What do we push as something worth your life? Is it finances? Is that something that we push in our society? I mean, comment in the feed below. Share some of your thoughts. And as we close here, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions on some of the things that we brought up? Do you disagree with us? Please share how you disagree. We want this to be a discourse with everyone watching and listening just as much as it is with us here. We want to hear your thoughts. If you have anything to share on some of the history, on some of the philosophy, on some of the religion we brought up, on some of the politics, if we got any of our facts wrong, share in the feed. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to learn from you guys as well. This is an open discourse. The whole idea is that we are critically thinking through everything around us.
Absolutely. And as I like to, we say that in Brazil, if you like the podcast, recommend to your friends. If you didn't like, recommend to your enemies. So please don't forget to subscribe, all the things that you know about, YouTube and Rumble. Please subscribe. Please share this video in a social media if you like our content. If you hate it also too, because we have to be stopped. Share with your friends.
Share with everyone.
Share with everyone because, I think society needs to have critical thinking. That's what's lacking. And we want to bring that. We want to bring a neutral, an unbiased, set of ideas and debate those ideas with you. And again, comment, send us an email, and next podcast we're going to read them. So please help us to get this podcast to be popular and to be watched. If you like. If you don't like, recommend to your enemies and make them suffer. Look into both of us.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time on Critical Thinker.
Bye-bye.